Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rewinds Rewind. We have another double feature on our hands for episode 9 this go around. We've had another double eviction. First time in a minute that I think we've been able to
Had
have
two in the season. Yeah.
two
15 we
active,
pulled it off,
effective.
but before then it was a challenge.
Yeah, it's been very rare. So pulling off two double evictions in one season, let's celebrate that. As always, I'm Jackson, your lovely host. I am joined by not one, not two, not three, but four other lovely people this go around.
I
Uh,
fear we're outnumbered today, Jackson. It's 3-2. What are we gonna
oh
do?
no. Oh, this is my worst nightmare. I can't believe this has
There's so
happened.
many women.
Sorry,
Also,
let
I'm
me
Shane.
start
Hello.
over. I'm the male minority hire of the
Oh my
podcast,
God.
Jackson.
Shanks is
Um,
not used. Shanks is not
leading,
used to a lot of women around. So.
I know
All
it's
right.
true.
Yeah.
I need
All
to.
right. All
I know.
right. Let's
At
calm
least
down.
Graham isn't here, the known woman hater. I don't know
Mhm.
what he would be doing now, but
That's
yeah,
why he's not here.
yeah, exactly. Known majority woman leader is also here in Sydney. Hi, Sydney. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I love that title.
Leader of the
Does that mean
Femoids.
does that mean I get to like what powers do I get with leading the Femoids?
I
Can I
don't
start a
know.
militia?
I don't know, like period
Sure.
cramps.
Alex, we're mobilizing.
Period cramps. I
I'm
can't
gonna
with
join. I'm
him.
gonna join you guys now. We're gonna outnumber Shanks because of that comment alone.
You already do.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
gonna I'm
wow.
gonna jump ship and really
Oh,
just flush it down.
racially motivated.
Holding
For
up an
those who can't
arm.
see, I just rose my black arm into the camera.
Amazing. Yes.
Mo's on our side too, guys.
Shanks is also here, as you can tell
Yes.
by this point. Hopefully.
Hello, I am Alex. I am the other feminoid or whatever the fuck we're calling ourselves. Glad to be here. Love the
Hell yeah.
doubles.
Hell yeah.
Really fun.
And last but most certainly not least, we have our extra special guest for this episode. She knows a thing or two about some messy double evictions herself. It is Allie, everybody. Welcome, Allie.
Woo!
Hey. Hello.
It's JoJo and Aaron Keenan.
It's my.
Yeah, you're good.
Well,
Oh my gosh. It's like the mic is weird. Hey. I know Messy doubles because I watched Shanks' gameplay live in action.
all right.
See, there you
Gagged.
go. Hit him again for me. And so yeah, we're here. We're gonna cover we have quite a bit of ground to cover, as the Glorb Lords are officially dead, I fear. Liz,
Period.
He
yeah,
was their glue. I think Liz was the glue the whole time.
yeah, I think there was
The
maybe
glue
a
of the
chance.
Glorbs.
There was maybe a chance of them coming back together after Liz went, but I think it all got kind of eviscerated as this went, and now they're fully kind of on the downward spiral. So let's get right into it. As we just said, last episode we did see Liz get evicted by a 3-2 vote over Meg. It was very shocking, I'm sure. At the hands of kind of Jace. Jace kept Meg around because Meg is a shield, and he felt closer with Meg. And then Jackie and Day both. That was like their plan, I guess. Like especially Jackie. Jackie's absolutely wanted Liz out over Meg. Kind of for similar reasons, but also for Jackie's own reasons that she got. So yes, Liz did eventually get evicted by a vote of 3-2.
Liztogo.
Yeah, Liztogo. She went right out to the jury. So the game keeps on going. Meg immediately goes to Jason after surviving by the skin of her teeth and tries to you've heard of love bombing. This is like apology bombing. It's like, please, we can work together. It's that thing that everyone always does, where it's like no one would expect if we worked together. Wouldn't that be so amazing? And that never works. It's never gonna happen. And yeah, they start in the HOH with the final 7 coming into play. We go to finally. This was off-Broadway week, finally, right?
Sydney has been sitting on this week for the entire season.
For years.
Like literally.
It's
Um,
been an ordeal, but we finally made it.
the house guests tried a few times to kill it.
They
Between
really tried their
evicting the
best.
twins and Becky going off into the big train station in the sky. Um, all of it. They really tried, but the devil works hard, but Sydney works harder, and she was going to keep these competitions. God damn it.
I persevered.
Yes,
We'd
exactly.
love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we go into off-Broadway week. And Sydney, would you like to describe what the HOH competition was for your off-Broadway cycle?
Yes, so finally I was allowed to officially bring in bombs as a part of the BBR lore.
Thank
So
God.
essentially, JD from Heather's The Off-Broadway Musical is looking to bomb the high school, and it's up to the house guests to defuse the bomb in time to save the school. And essentially, they have all these tasks about, oh my God, defusing the bomb. And they were really counted towards time and penalties. So if they got a time of 10 minutes but zero penalties, they were in a better spot than someone who had one penalty in a time of 5 minutes. So a lot of it was speed, but we used the penalties as a way to kind of discourage them from just like spamming answers. Because some of the tasks were like, there was only like 3 or 4 options anyway. So I was really proud of the comp. Jackson did really cool graphics for it. So it looked really, really nice. Um, and I'll just say that Audrey was probably the only one who was excited about it because she was really the only one I think who even knows that Heather's has a musical,
Yeah,
or maybe even knows that Heather's is a thing at all.
maybe
Because
so, yeah.
I think Devon in some alliance chat was like, "Why would you make a comp or about a musical that like 3 people have seen?" And I was like,
And I will
"Oh, hold
say, saying
on,
that about like Heather's the musical is like
Heather's
it's a very like
like."
culty,
And
like
I
cult
don't even
classic
like theater
musical.
like that. Like theater, I don't even like theater like that, but Heather's is different.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? That got all their asses because the last round of the comp, they had to unscramble 3 pretty simple words or phrases and put them in alphabetical order. And it was all words from songs from the fucking musical, which it says in the comp directions that it's about Heather's the musical.
They don't
And they're all
read.
like, how was I supposed to know it was blue and not lube? Like, don't piss me
Yeah,
off. Also, like,
Jace
why
put
the
yeah,
fuck would why would I
Jace
add lube for
Jace put
any
like
reason as a
lube,
word?
beautiful, freeze
Yeah,
or something like that.
freezer. He added an
I
extra
mean,
R.
once it's
Lube,
named
beautiful
Viber, I typed
freezer.
orgy, so it
Yeah.
happens.
Lube,
People
beautiful freezer
will
was
do that.
crazy.
So anyway,
Sometimes your
so
mind just goes to dark
as
places.
known, and you know what? I will say at least most of them finished. I think actually all of them finished and no one disqualified. So snaps for that.
Yes,
I
I do
mean,
remember
that's
that stat. It was
honestly,
very exciting.
that
Mhm.
is a feat that has been almost never reached this entire
Mm-mm.
season.
There's
So
always been at least
love everyone.
one DNF
At
or
least,
one
and it's usually
DQ or something.
Audrey.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was the
So yeah,
comp.
yeah,
That was the HOH.
Audrey feels very confident about her score and time in the HOH and basically goes around and tells everybody like, "Hey, I'm gonna be HOH." So like I'm just saying like you be ready for that. Spoiler alert, she does not become HOH. She loses the competition.
Mm-hmm. I think
Um
she was second place or maybe
no, yeah,
third
she was
place or
close.
something.
Um
She was close, but
Because yet again, I was like, Audrey, we need to win fucking competition so that it's just Clay and Steve that hasn't won anything. And yet
mhm.
again, it doesn't happen. But yes, James ends up winning the head of household competition. After
And he was trying to throw, by the way,
I
quote
know
unquote throw.
it's just yet another point that we need to have.
James tried to throw with 5 minutes in a perfect score. That
Yeah,
No penalties.
that's
Like, are
crazy.
you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
That's
And he
insane.
was so mad about it. Like, bro,
mind you, Audrey was over here like they said. Audrey was like, "I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win." And James is like, "I hope that was slow enough after doing 5 minutes and zero penalties."
Like we have to have that competition next season of how to throw a competition. We just have to.
we need like a
Um,
seminar.
we do. It needs
Honestly,
to be like a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Audrey's obviously pissed that this is probably the best. Oh, well, pre her DNFing in Hide and Go Veto, this is probably the best that she's done in a competition so far.
Which is
And
pretty much is not disqualifying.
basically at this point, and so she's pissed that she's not HOH, but she's like, ugh, whatever. Like I'll make do with James, I guess. And it is I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the because this happened it was nighttime, yeah, when this happened. So that same morning, um Jace and Meg and James made an alliance. Um named after a combination of like a reference to all my exes live in Texas, but also Meg is like wildly illiterate and refuses to use autocorrect. So it's all my alliance live in Eacne.
Like, sure.
Just deconstructed the word alliance in the worst possible way.
Yeah, yeah. So this is like a fresh alliance that has just happened, and when James wins HOH, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna nominate Jason Meg. This is gonna be really awkward because we're going on like 18 hours of this alliance being, if even that, it might be like 12 hours of this alliance existing, and Jason and Meg are
Mhm.
like legit serious about it. Um, and it's just a mess. James is so mad that he's won this HOH. And James also goes to Jackie and tells her that he doesn't want Jason or Davon touching the block at all. So via process of elimination, that literally only leaves Jace and Meg and then Audrey. So that's like his nomination pool. So it seems like he's just going to repeat of what Jason did last cycle and nominate Jace and Meg. And then if he needs a renom and Audrey is available for the renom, then he will do that. Meanwhile, Jace is running to Audrey right now and is like, "Oh my God, Audrey, this is so clutch. Like James won HOH. We're so safe. Like
This
congrats
has
on
happened too
final
many
six."
times this season. Too many
Yeah,
times.
it
Someone's
happens
like,
every
"Oh my
week.
God, we're safe," because the person who went into it probably shouldn't have won a choice to begin with.
That's
And
true.
everyone's like, "Oh my God, we're safe," and then they're like, "Ah, never mind,
Yeah.
dummy."
Yeah.
Can't
And
believe it.
Jace basically goes to James and is like subtly, not so subtly, trying to get him to be like, "Hey, Jace, you're safe this week. Like, just sit back and relax." And James just keeps like skirting around the topic of like nominations and like Jace in the game and everything and all that. Meanwhile, like immediately after James won HOH, he told Davon that she was safe. And so Jace and Davon were talking, and Davon was like, "Oh, well, he already told me that I'm safe, so I don't know what he's doing with you." So it's just such a mess. But yeah, James is like spiraling in his one-on-one or in his DMs, or not his DMs, in his DR about like, "Why did I win this? I can't believe this is happening. My game is gonna be terrible. It's like it's all over." And he basically he kind of goes with the approach of, okay, well, if I just avoid the confrontation that will eventually happen for as long as physically possible, then I don't have to worry about it, and like out of sight, out of mind. So I'm just gonna not.
Just
I'm gonna keep
such a bad idea.
yeah. I'm just gonna keep up regular conversation with Meg and Jace for the entire deadline, and pretend like nothing's wrong. And then maybe like an hour before it's due or something, I'll be like, "Hey, I'm gonna nominate you. So sorry." Which, as we'll find out, is always foolproof and always works out for the best for the HOH. And Jace, in his continued paranoia about James not telling him straight up that he's safe, hatches this plan to try and get James to like nominate Jason and be like, "Oh, but we'll absolutely keep Jason. Like, don't you worry. Why would we get rid of Jason?" And then like secretly blindside him and get Jason out. But it's not happening, obviously. James or Jace eventually goes to his DR after he's told that he's being nominated, and he like replies to himself and he's like, "Okay, so never mind. Forget I even said that. This was stupid." So while Jace is hatching that plan to try and get James to unintentionally send out Jason or whatever, James and Jackie are plotting in their one-on-ones, talking about how they can like inception day into thinking that Jackie made this deal with James to stay off the block and be safe, and that like they have to make this 3 and just basically kind of keeping up and doubling down on a lot of what they've done already in the game and keeping like their duo a secret. But they also want to like inception Day into wanting wanting Day to have Jace get out. And it's kind of a convoluted plan, but it is eventually executed very well. And James has another session of being mad that the character he's played this whole game of like being stupid and not knowing what's going on, and people are treating him like he's stupid and he doesn't know what's going on. So you reap what you sow as far as that goes.
It's just so
Can I
funny. It's
can
like,
I add one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Well, I think Shinx is probably going to say something similar, but it's like it's such an interesting balancing act with James because I do think that him playing up the whole idea of like I'm very lost in this game, like I'm very sensitive, like I'm a very like sensitive, almost like implied weaker player. Like obviously that's all been intentional. And I do think in many ways it's gotten him to where he is now and it's been a good strategy. But it is the point where it's like now that we're getting so far into the end game, like at what point do you have to start shedding that to get people to be serious about you? Because at
Yeah.
some point, like that perception is going to become not just a perception that you can say, like, I wielded this as a tool in order to like diminish my threat level. At what point are people just going to be like, no, like you're just that player? And they're not going to believe it if you fight back or if you make it to final 2 and you try to argue that the whole time you were doing it on purpose, because at that point it's like everyone sees it as reality. So I think that's kind of the issue James is running into now. It's like he's gotten so deep into this whole idea of being a weaker player that he is struggling to have people besides like Jackie take him like very seriously. Not that people don't see him as a threat. I just think that he's starting to get frustrated when people continually like underestimate him or when they feel a certain type of way about him. But it's like it is kind of just you reap what you sow at a certain point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better.
Period. And I will say he has done a very good job at like
He's
vocalizing.
like he
And
drops the truth in the GBMs,
yeah,
but
exactly.
at this point, some people, spoiler Jace, are really bitter, and it's like this is fucking stupid. This wasn't even. Why are you doing this? Like that was dumb of you. What's wrong with you? So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which is,
It's
I
like
think
the
I
purple
also
pigment
saw.
effect,
I think I
but
saw
almost
Liz
worse.
also make mention of like she kind of counts like she felt as though the persona was almost like a barrier between
Yeah,
like getting to know him, and
yeah,
she would like value Jackie more, who she felt was like a more authentic connection.
which is
almost
fair.
like purple pigment effect of
Well,
everything. Like
Mhm.
I swear I saw like someone say that a James goodbye message was like so good and like they like loved it or whatever. Was
Oh,
that
yeah.
Becky?
It was basically all
Becky or
the
Jeff
Nickelback
or something,
people.
but
Yeah.
Charlie
Jace
Jury was
is
like
just
obsessed
bitter.
with his goodbye messages.
Yeah.
They
Like
were
he
very
might
Jace is just
be playing dumb, but his goodbye messages are
hilariously
good.
bitter.
for
Better
sure.
than better than Freak Sombra.
Yeah, it was
Right.
even like Liz. I think James forgot to give one to Liz, and Jeff and Shelly were like, "No, his debrief were so." I can basically tell it for you. Whereas Jace, who's for again, is upset because he's like, "Oh man, James is just saying the exact same thing in all his JPMs. He's copy pasting it. They're not personal. This guy sucks, but he still wants James to win." I don't. Jace is a weird.
You'll find when we get there.
We'll get to that when
Jace
we get to
is very
that. But
bitter.
yeah,
Yeah. But yes, but in this time between James stalling doing nominations, Meg decides to finally leak the Glorb Lords to James about what day was this? This was like it was about 34 days too late, probably. Um given that Jackie told James about that on like day 3 or something. But yeah, so James acts dumb and is like, "What? No. Oh my God. Thank you for telling me about this. I had no idea." Um, and then goes and proceeds to have like the nominations talk with Jace. And Meg kind of puts it together like, "Oh, well, if he's nominating Jace, like he's probably nominating me," and start to put that together before James even gets to Meg. And Meg puts it together in her mind that Jackie and Davon somehow like beat James or beat her to the punch of leaking Glorb Lords. And which I guess is not wrong with Jackie, like absolutely. But Day, I don't think ever leaked it until after she knew about Meg leaking it. And so it's just kind of a mess in itself. And Meg is like, but that would be so stupid because all that would do is push Audrey and James and Jason together. And then what? You're jumping over to Audrey and Jason and James? What are we doing with that? And it's just, oh girl, you're just a little behind on what's going on. And yeah, James like pretends to like hear Jace out about maybe not nominating him and stuff like that, but it obviously goes nowhere. Um, and it's just bad. It's not great. And Jace is pissed, and then James gets to Meg, and Meg is pissed, and it's just a whole thing. So after I think it was like 23 of the 24 hours for the deadline or something, James goes and nominates Meg and Jace for eviction, and even Meg is like in ceremonies, like as the nominations is still going on. Meg is like, James, what the fuck? Like, I'm genuinely, I'm sure she said she was Shrut or something like that, or I can't believe you dirred this Jamar or whatever because of her typos and everything. But Meg is pissed and is very vocal about it. And Jason, his typical Jace fashion, like goes to Davon and Audrey and is like basically blames them for him being nominated and him being on the block. And it's that thing with Jace where you can't really tell if he's joking or not because he's like half joking, I guess, but he just constantly says crazy shit.
I feel like he says it just to see what the reaction's gonna be, and like I don't even think it's strategic. Like it
I
should
don't know.
be.
I
I
don't think
think
it is
he can.
either.
I think he can like really kind of weaponize that like in the future. But
Yep.
as is, it's just him just like
Just him
saying whatever
fucking
the
with
fuck he
people.
wants. Yeah.
Yeah, much like with James last cycle with
Hmm.
the 3-2 vote, how it genuinely ruined like James's
Oh,
team.
for sure.
Um, uh, and yeah, it's basically at this point, I think people are preferring to target Meg over Chase. I think she's better in competitions, um, uh, and is kind of I think is a bigger. I think she's better in competitions, and honestly, I think Meg's game is more respected than Jace's is. And she would be a bigger like threat towards the end. So both of those compounded on top of each other basically leads to Meg being the target of the two from both James, and I think Jackie wants that as well. Um, and yeah, Jackie basically like vows to herself in DR, oh, because James tells Jackie that Meg just like quote unquote leaked the Glorbs. And Jackie's like, how fucking dare she? She's dead. Only I get to leak things to James. How dare she? And so she basically wants Meg's head on a spike. So basically, unless Meg wins veto, she's probably dead. Um, and yeah, so with that brings us into the veto competition, in which obviously we have James along with Meg and Jace competing as the HOH and the two nominees. But then we also get Audrey and Dave Vaughn competing, and then yet another Meg house guest choice. There's I think there's been like 4 of these this
So
season.
many.
There's always been some kind of house guest choice. It feels like during the veto pick. So Meg gets house guest choice, and she picks Jackie. So that's fun. Jackie has also been picked by house guest choice like quite a number of times. I'm sure if Jackie is, well, I don't know if that would be fair or not. If we asked a question about Jackie in Sing Land or Sing parties, probably not. But I mean,
No,
I'm sure there'll
sometimes I've
be.
asked people questions about like, hey, you might get a question about yourself.
That's
Just
true.
heads up.
I'm sure we'll at least ask one about house guest choice because there's been so fucking many this season.
Yeah.
But yes, so the only person playing in not in only person not playing in veto is Jason, which I thought was kind of funny because he's like the
The
comp.
tiny Kong of it all almost happened, but it was never gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Uh, and yeah, Sydney, do you want to go ahead and describe the veto competition for this cycle as well?
Yankee Swamp.
Yes. So this was also a fun comp. It was a little bit more involved than HOH. It was, is it Strands? I've actually never played the
Yes.
actual
Yes.
game.
Yes, because
New York
we built the
Times
entire
tradition.
comp calling it threads.
You're right,
Yeah,
right.
I
Jinx
literally
was
got
like,
Yeah.
online. I
"You
was like,
fucking
yo,
idiots. This because it's called
it's called
strands."
Yeah.
strands. What are you
Well,
doing?
our whole idea was like in the past we've done other like word game puzzle POVs like this.
Doing
So
Wordles,
we've been trying to do like,
connections.
yeah, so
Yeah,
we've been
yeah.
trying to do like a different
In
connections.
15 we did the mini crossword. In 16 we did
Yes.
connections. So just keep it going.
Yeah. Yeah, and we wanted to do something like a different kind of word game. So we ended up with Strands, but I've never played Strands, so I thought it was called Threads. And we like made
And
the
I think
comp like that, and then I
I
had to
think
fix
we
it.
even came up with a thread like putton name or something.
We did.
And
We
Jinx was
did,
like, "What are
yeah.
you
And
Yeah,
then
and then I was
someone
like,
came, then
yo.
Shinx came on hours later and was like, "You guys are dumb as fuck," and I was like, "Oh my
I was like,
god!"
what do y'all
But it was
do? I was like,
fine.
and I was like, what do y'all doing? But Stranding Ovation is still a good.
I thought Stranding Ovation was very cute though. Yes, absolutely.
No, that was a great name. So we got the comp done long ago, and essentially it was literally just playing Strands, but it was centered around Titanic, which is a
So funny.
parody off Broadway musical that stars Cher in like a parody of the classic Titanic movie. So it's like a jukebox musical with not Cher, oh my God, Celine
Celine
Dion.
Dion.
Whoops. You know what? Two moms. Sorry, I'm getting my mothers mixed up.
Sure.
Celine
Cher
Dion,
should be in
because
it.
she always, right. No, I mean, the fact that she's not,
I
but
love
Celine
how I
Dion obviously
believed you
sang.
entirely. Like I was on
I
board.
know. It took me a second to realize because Celine Dion sang My Heart Will Go On, which is like the famous Titanic song.
Yeah.
So the parody is a jukebox musical of Celine Dion songs. Frankie Grande is in it, which just made it even better, like adding layers. Like Shinx got mad at me because I like mentioned that in the comp, and he's like, "You can't just always add Frankie Grande." I'm like, he
I did
literally
not get mad.
starred in the show. He
I did not
starred
get
in the
mad.
fucking show. I didn't just make it up. He was in the fucking musical. But anyway, so we got a Frankie mention. We have Celine, Mother. So essentially, each round was just themed around different things regarding Titanic. So there was like just like a nautical. That was the first one. That actually was the hardest one for most people. I think because it was just such like a general category.
Yeah.
There was like Celine Dion's, but I had to like abridge the name of her hits
Yeah, because
because
it could
you
only
can't
be a
really,
certain amount of letters or
yeah,
something.
you can't fit a lot of words into that thing. And all of her songs are like really long. So
Fucking long. Yeah, absolutely.
instead of Beauty and the Beast, I had to do like Beauty Beast.
Beauty Beast.
And like
Yeah.
instead of like My Heart Will Go On, I just did Heart Will.
Yeah.
So that one I think was like a little
So funny.
harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just generally like all themed around Titanic, and like I did like Titanic, the parody, and then it was like off Broadway parody, jukebox, stuff like that. So they had to time themselves each round, and they had to get all six strands for each theme. And I was honestly worried about them because even though we did have hints built into it, it's still a harder competition,
Yeah.
and they are not strong in competitions. But I think almost everyone managed to get at least past round one, which I respectable. That was the hardest round. But yeah, it was
No,
a fun
that's not
comp.
true.
It was definitely, oh,
Davon did
not
not
true.
get past round one.
Oh, well, okay. Devon was throwing though. She was throwing hard because
That's
Thank
fair.
this was
God, because she was gonna
also
fuck up the
Yankee
live.
Swap. Because this was also the iconic Yankee Swap competition, which meant that it was every round when someone got eliminated, they would get to choose a prize or a punishment. And then the next person would either get to steal, or she would choose a new thing to unwrap and see what they got. So Devon was throwing because she had no business winning and she didn't need to win. And she couldn't make it for like the 15-minute live portion because she was going to a baseball game. So we essentially just like psyop turned to
It sounds
throwing.
so
Like,
suspicious on so many levels.
well, Shakes in like announcements was like, by the way, whoever gets last doesn't have to be there for the live portion. And he was like, I said that for you, Davon, and her subs. And she was like, slay. So
And she was very,
she
listen, she was very adamant about going to this baseball game
no, she
and
was like,
enjoying
I'm
herself.
gonna be at that baseball game. I'm locked in. I can't be there. And we were like, okay, well then throw, which she did. Love her for that.
Yeah.
So Davon threw, and then it was kind of a bit of a battle then between everybody else. So yeah, take it away. Am I doing the punishments, the prizes? Because honestly, I was not there when
I
those got
mean, I
announced.
mean, anyone can do it. It's fine. Yeah. Davon, yeah, bombs out of the first round and literally is like, okay,
Queen.
we were like, okay, enjoy your baseball game. She did. And so of course in these the whole point of the competition is the power of veto, obviously. But just given
Hmm.
the nature of it, the person who always gets last place ends up getting the veto because it's just all the trading and
Yeah.
everything. So
Yeah.
Davon gets last and does get the power of veto. Following that in the second round, James, or not James, Jace, all these fucking J names. I cannot believe there's so many J names
They're
in
dying
like
out finally.
final seven. It's crazy. But yes,
Colorful.
but Jace gets more than double everyone else's time. He does complete it, so good on him. But Jace gets out the second round, and Jace is given quite possibly, I will say the Titanic costume and the iceberg costume might be my favorite thing that we've come up with
So
for
good.
punishment costumes so far. I thought it was so fucking funny. And so yeah, Jace for getting fifth place gets the Titanic costume punishment. Which one we didn't reveal it immediately, but after it was revealed with the iceberg costume as well. Basically, every day at 11:40 p.m. and a.m. Which is when the Titanic sank. The Titanic sank at 11:40 a.m. Um, they had to like reenact the Titanic hitting the
I loved that
iceberg
one.
and
That was
sinking.
my
It was so
favorite.
stupid. Yes, but Jace gets the Titanic costume and trades with Davon for that. And then we move on to round three, in which Audrey, who had previously been using hints, so in each round you got 3 hints if you needed it, because they do hints in the actual thing too. So Audrey had used 3 hints in the first round, but since Davon just didn't finish it, she made it through. And then she made it through the second round without using any hints somehow. But then she came back around on it and used 3 hints in the third round. So she also had the slower time. So even if she didn't, she would have been out anyways. But Audrey got fourth place in round three. And Audrey was given, I believe, Audrey was given the dinner date night with Nicole and Cody from last season.
No,
Um
I thought that was Jay. Oh, you're going in order. My bad.
yeah. And so she wins that for her prize, but Audrey wants the veto. And she wants to win a competition. So she trades the date night with Cody and Nicole with Jace and takes the veto. And then we go on to round four, in which everyone manages to finish and without hints. So James, with the time of right under 7 minutes, gets gets third place, and gets the iceberg punishment. And he elects to keep it because after him, it's just Meg and Jackie. And he would prefer if Jackie won the veto and had to do something or not with it, or just Meg won it and she was going to use it on herself anyways. So he keeps the iceberg punishment, is tied with Davon. We're into the last round, and with a time of 1:44 to 2:12, so it was pretty close, about 30 seconds. Meg edges out Jackie. Jackie finishes in second place, and she is given the, I guess, power, if you want to say it. I think it's a pretty valuable thing if you use it correctly. To meet with one of the jury members for an hour and basically um, uh, use that however she likes. Um, uh, and
And
she obviously,
I was just gonna say, fun fact, that was our replacement reward
yes,
because we couldn't have the veto ticket because of like
Yeah.
everything being shifted around.
yeah, because this was supposed to happen
Yeah.
like 4 cycles ago or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
But
We
yeah,
like to throw in the veto tickets to prevent people from getting tiny konged if they can. However,
Let
it just
them.
didn't work out, I
yeah, and
fear,
that's
and
okay.
shit happens.
Yeah. It's on them, really. It's their fault. Yeah,
Yeah.
but Jackie, obviously, Meg gets the pick of the litter, and so she's gonna pick the veto and save herself. So there's no point. So Jackie just keeps the date with the juror and lets Meg get her first place prize, which is themed after the ever iconic "Draw me like one of your French girls" quote from Titanic. And basically, it's at request. If anyone pings you with a prompt to draw, you have to give the commission for that drawing and send it. So Meg obviously does not want that compared to the power of veto. So she indeed does switch with Audrey for the veto, giving Audrey the "draw me like one of your French girls" punishments.
She still owes
And
us those PFPs.
yeah,
I should follow up
This
with
is
her.
true.
I know. She has some checks that still need to be cashed there. Absolutely. And yes, Meg does end up snatching the veto, a pretty clutch power of veto win. And she was pretty dominant. I think there was one round maybe where she was not in first for some of them, and other than that she kind of like blew everyone away. She'd been talking about wanting to do the Yankee swap like all season and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's good for her for winning this veto, and she absolutely needed to keep herself safe. And yeah, and honestly this is probably good because, well, I think in the longer term Meg is a bigger shield and probably someone that's easier to get out as you go deeper into the late game. Like if she just doesn't win competitions, you can probably vote her out. I feel like Jace is a bit more weaselly and would be the person more difficult to get out in as you get into the end game. So, um, despite James and Jackie being pissed and being like, "Oh, Meg, we can't kill her now," I think this was probably the ideal outcome for them, I would think. They got
I feel
their
like it's ideal for everyone but James, who gets more blood on his hands.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because
So
James has to nominate yet another person after Meg uses the power of veto on herself, obviously. Um, and Jackie meets with Jeff for her juror meeting, and learns from Jeff that he's very impressed with both Jackie's games and James's games, and their whole like secret duo ship was like a really like fun and exciting thing to learn about from goodbye messages, and he's basically rooting for the both of them. And um I feel like not a lot of like new ground is broken in their little 1 hour chat, but I think it was very reaffirming and positive for Jackie, and maybe if anything, maybe built up James's game a bit more in Jackie's mind as well, which could very well lead to Jackie's kind of been going back and forth on like, well, do I want to like fully duo all the way to the end if I can still beat James at the end, or would I like cut him right at the end and like beat the other person? So that could very well be something that is weighing on Jackie's mind with
Mm.
how much Jeff and the other jurors seem to really respect James's game as well as hers. Um, this is like attempt number like 9 of Audrey attempting to get Davon on the blog and get her out. And again, it doesn't happen.
tale as old as time. You gotta
Truly,
admire her tenacity.
yeah. This has been since like I remember like cycle 1, Audrey being like, "I'm gonna win HOH next cycle. I'm gonna make a huge move, and I'm gonna nominate Meg and Davon, and I'm gonna get Davon out." So it's the same thing, just like 40 days later, truly. And Audrey thinks that she's safe from renomination and that she can get James to nominate Day and finally get Davon out of here. Um, and spoiler alert, that doesn't happen, obviously. And Jackie plans to use Meg leaking the Glorblords to James as a reason for Davon to try and get the votes to like kick Jace out. Because they're trying to paint this picture of Meg and Jace being like this power duo. that are just going to look out for each other, and like they're leaking stuff, and clearly they don't actually care about the Glorbs anymore, and they're just like out for themselves, and Jace has got to go. So that's the plan, that Jackie is taking that. And she also wants to try and get Davon to like go to James herself and have Davon think that she's the one that talks James out of making Jackie the renom, when obviously that wasn't going to happen ever, but wants to kind of like have that in Davon's mind that she did it that way. Day can be like, oh, well, I just saved Jackie from being like the renom. Like she's gonna be so loyal to me and so close. And this is just gonna make our final three with James like that much more powerful. So it really feels like at this point that everyone is playing checkers and like Jackie is playing chess this cycle. It's kind of crazy. Let's see. Yeah, Jackie's plan is working for Day, and they're putting together the three of Day and James and Jackie like they wanted, and Davon is theorizing in her DR that Jace thinks that she actually leaked the Glorbs instead of Meg, and is blaming her to everybody and throwing Day under the bus, and she's done with Jace. She doesn't want anything to do with him anymore. So really like Jackie's whole plan was like kind of hook, line, and sinker about this whole thing. There were some outside factors that also contributed to it, but Jackie had put all of the groundwork in, and it kind of pays off tremendously. And they do eventually make the final three of Jackie, James, and Day and call it the Whistleblowers, which I think is super cute. Like with the Titanic theme, but also it's like them flipping on the Glorbs and like whistleblowing about the Glorbs and stuff like that. So it's very, very cute. Let's see. What was next? Oh yeah, James once again takes pretty much the whole deadline to renominate Audrey, and he refuses to talk about anything with the game with her because he's afraid of confrontation, and doesn't
Meanwhile, people are saying to Audrey, like, oh my God, I've been so upset that like you're going up. And so like she knows that she's going up type thing. Or like they said that to her after she was told. So she knew that James knew the entire time. Like it was just it's gotten really kind of messy for James as far as that
absolutely.
goes.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
yet another HOH that is not. I don't think by any means. I don't think it like completely tanked James's game, and I think he's still like very much a contender for all of it. But it made it a lot messier than it like ever probably should have.
I think it's impacting a bit of his jury respect for the more recent jurors as
Yeah.
they kind of see that he's not saying it with his full chest the way he should be.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. Yeah, I can totally see that. And so once once James does get around to telling Audrey that she's gonna be the renom, uh she to say she doesn't take it well is a bit of an understatement. But she basically rips James a new asshole and like threatens to quit if James nominates her, and is like, I would never do this to you. I can't believe you're doing this to me. And
It was so bad.
yeah.
Meanwhile, we're checking in. She's like, oh no, I'm good.
Yeah,
James is
we're
like,
like,
then can you
girl,
not fucking do that? Like, what
girl,
are
are
you
you
Yeah, I
doing?
was like,
okay? And she's
I
like,
was like,
oh yeah,
calm
I'm just fucking
down.
with James.
I'm like,
Crazy.
please be serious.
But yeah, and basically, as the news is getting out that Audrey's going to be the renom, Meg and Jace think that this is like their golden ticket, pretty much, and that they're just going to vote out Audrey and keep them all in, which is again just showing how kind of they kind of been left behind a little bit by the strategy and the tables turning. And it does, Meg does kind of like put together like, well, what if this like was the plan all along, and James and Day and Jackie are working together, and like we're really screwed no matter what. And they're both like, nah, probably not. That would be crazy. It's like, no, that's literally what's happening. And you kind of got to the right conclusion with like all of the wrong information. But it's it's a mess. It's a bit of a mess.
And I will say, like, one thing I really enjoyed, but was also very intrigued by with Meg's game was for quite a few cycles in a row, Meg was like the least messy player and the best player at being least messy. Like tied with Jackie, I would say. Like that early pre-jury phase, like Meg had all the information. Meg had one HOH and did really well. Like no one was even mad at Meg. Like I saw Meg as like kind of the straight man amongst the Glorbs next to Jackie.
Yeah.
And then it's like kind of like she's like had like a body switch with Davon. Like suddenly Davon was like the leader and the cool and stable person who always was like had the right thing to say. Like before that, Davon had kind of been out of the spotlight, and there was this moment where Davon kind of came to the forefront, and then suddenly Meg's game just like collapsed. It was like
It
she held
really
on
Just
to
like
was
power.
absorb her
that
essence or something. She just like
yeah,
stole her soul.
Yeah,
I
and it's
think
like she
Yeah.
held on to power for a long time. Like it wasn't like she immediately lost all of her power, but it was like there was just this sudden flip where Meg went from like this really cool, calm, and collected power player to like someone who was having temper tantrums every cycle and like totally like repelling all of her allies
yeah.
and just like climbing down the trust rankings for every single person in the house. And it was like, I don't know exactly what happened, but this is definitely like a very fitting cycle showing the accumulation of how her game like really shifted. And I thought that was really like a interesting evolution or de-evolution, I guess you could say, of
Absolutely,
her
yeah.
game in this cycle.
It
Yeah.
really was like that Jeff flip when that happened. Like
Yeah.
instead of and like yeah, it was bad. Like Jeff did really trust Meg, and that was definitely a great number for her. But I feel like she just made it infinitely worse than what it
Yeah, she
actually
she
was.
couldn't like she couldn't adjust. Like she refused to adjust. And I think part of it maybe was the fact that the Glorbs ran things and really everything went their way and they were never in any kind of danger for so long that the minute even it wasn't even that they were losing power, it was just that things didn't go their way. It's like that was when Meg started really collapsing. Like, and she just, yeah, she never figured out how to really come back to the
Uh-uh.
position she'd been in. Cause I definitely think even like 2 or 3 cycles ago, there was a path for Meg to kind of adapt and be flexible and change the way she was playing her game. And just like, it just never happened.
Uh-uh. Yeah, it was so bizarre because I feel like well, I don't know, like Jackie and I feel like Jackie and Day never intended on like actually going to like final five or final six
No.
with all the Glorbs, obviously. And I mean they waited about as long as they could, like until like after the battle back and everything. When the Glorbs like fully like had majority, it was like what they were like 5 of the 8 people that were left or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
and I maybe like I think it all just comes down to like Jackie and Day were so much more proactive with the people outside of the Glorbs, or at least the people that Meg and Jace were more proactive with, like were kind of those people that filled those like early jury spots that were like kind of fighting for battle back. And like really even then it was like just Jeff. Because like Jason didn't really like Meg or Jace. Um, Shelly was far more in with Day and James than she ever was with Meg and Jace. And I just feel like it's almost maybe like they got comfortable with the Glorbs like running things for so long. And even though the Jeff thing did happen, they were like, okay, well, we can still make it work, like, and we'll still make it work till the end, and stuff like that. And I feel like even then, like, Jace always had like Audrey as like his little side thing. I guess Meg's like biggest side thing that she did have was Jeff, and so maybe just that being taken from her so early was like kind of like took whatever ground. So she felt like, okay, well, I have to work with the Glorbs for like the rest of the game now. Cause like, what am I gonna work with? Like Jason and like Meg or Jason and like James, I guess. Like, I don't know. Maybe she felt like she just didn't have options or like the options that she would have had like never would have worked, you know? So I think
Well, I think her escape plan was with Jace and James,
yeah.
right? Like that was her plan. That's why she did view that one like alliance, whatever
Yeah,
that
that
was
trio.
called.
The
Yeah,
all my
I don't even want
Ally
to
lives in acne
parse
or
that.
whatever.
Yeah, I think that was why they were like so serious about that and so like seemingly traumatized by being nominated by James. You know, like
Yeah,
I think it was just such a blindside because
yeah,
like that was her plan,
yeah,
and it just
absolutely.
made her realize how like she probably was just like, oh, I'm just fucked. Like I just have no path forward in this game now because
Yeah. She's like, okay, well, guess I'm gonna win out.
yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
but so
Jinx
yes,
when he found out about Rock.
yeah, basically.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, it is a very comparable situation.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
the people resting on like the main power structure for the whole game and then getting to like kind of that second half like end game stretch and being like just completely unaware that that whole thing has been like left in the dust. And there are people like cross mingling and working together and stuff. So um yes, with Audrey as the renom, the campaign starts and in typical fashion for this season, I guess, both Jackie is acting like on the fence and is like, "Oh, well, I don't know what to do," and like, "Oh, what am I gonna do? I don't know who to vote for." And everything. And James is just straight up lying to Jace and is like, "Well, I'm hoping that Audrey goes and like you'll still be here and like I want you to stay. I'm so sorry," and all that. Meanwhile, Jackie in that same
Messy.
moment, yeah, is telling Jace that James wants him out.
Didn't James go so far as to even fucking say, like, I will keep you when it's high or something like
Yes.
I
blatant
think
lie
so.
like that? Like
so
it was so
bad.
bad.
Yeah, so
Not
Jace fully knows that
Survivor.
James
Like
is just bullshitting him at this point. But yeah, and Meg and Jace are talking about how, well, Jackie or Day must have orchestrated this whole thing because of what Alex was saying earlier about um James telling Jace that like he knew all of this information that was being said about him like before noms even happened and that he knew that Audrey was going to be the renom before that even happened and blah 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 blah. It's just it's a mess of information and it does not look good for James in any way. It basically just looks like he's kind of being like played a fool by they don't know which one, if it's Jackie or Davon at this point, but they assume it's one of them, and it just seems like James is kind of like their puppet that is just doing whatever. Um, uh, and it doesn't help that both Jackie and Day are just like kind of at the point where they're just not even responding to Jace, and being flaky about stuff. And this section I think is really I think Jace still thought he had some hope when Audrey went up and it was like, oh, I can still stay and the Glorbs can like be together still. But I think once he starts getting ghosted, as so many evicted people have been this season, this is what really starts Jace's like bitter Betty bitter Betty saga. And he's like he's hoping that Jason gets to the final two and that they all lose to Jason like he was been warning them about and blah 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 blah. And
Honestly, they might at this rate.
who knows? I it really depends who Jason would be against. I still would struggle. Let me preface this by saying that Jason's game pre-battle back and post-battle back has kind of been like night and fucking day.
Yeah.
Jason has done a very good job um, uh, coming back into the game, especially I feel like he made like about the most with his HOH immediately coming back into the game that he could have. And he got these power players and like Jackie and Day wanting to work with them and had this whole, whether it was true or not, this whole like rallying the underdogs of like James and Audrey wanting to work with him too, and all of that. And like, I mean, we even see this cycle. He didn't even touch the block. I think this is the first time,
His first blank week in
yeah,
the
the
entire
whole
fucking
game
season.
that he wasn't nominated and didn't have to win a competition, and he was just hanging out. So I think that just speaks to how well Jason is doing in the game now in itself. Um, uh, and yeah, basically the votes are there for Jace to go home. Uh, it it's
It's a matter
obviously
of them
Meg is gonna
telling.
evict Audrey.
She
That's
did. She insta voted before I
yeah,
even
she
finished the
yeah,
fucking message.
absolutely. Because Audrey and Meg have hated each other the whole game. We've been new. And so we were all expecting a 3-1 vote, with all of Day and Jackie and Jason voting for Jace. Maybe it would tie, maybe if like maybe Day like decided to vote for Audrey instead or something. But with all the work that Jackie and James had been doing the cycle, that didn't seem very likely, and Day seemed pretty like disenfranchised with Jace as a whole. So really, it's gonna be like 3-1. But Megs is the only vote that comes in, but like pretty early. I think Jason does vote, pretty early in the morning, the next day. But uh, those other two votes don't come in for a while. And it gives us enough time for Jace to kind of start like spiraling. And he also is like, well, if I'm gonna die, then like I'll be damned if Meg and Audrey just continue to go at each other and try and kill each other. So Jace makes it like his dying like death wish, to get Meg and Audrey to finally work together and work against the others to like prevent this like steamroll from happening or whatever. So he puts them in a group chat called Jace's Angels, and basically like on hands and knees being like, I'm about to be dead like as soon as these two people decide to cast their vote. Can you two please just like get your shit together and like work together for me? If you don't want to do it for yourselves, do it for me. And I think it kind of sort of, but I don't think it really impacts things tremendously, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And
feel
yeah,
like it was more like they pulled the knives out of the wounds and just kind of like put it like behind their back for a little bit.
yeah, they're like, okay,
They
because
just
they
vetted
also
it
don't
out.
really have much else to work with. They don't have anyone else to work with. So if they wanted to just be like riding solo for the end game, like I guess, but it's kind of like, okay, well, we were both just nominated and like we're pretty clearly on the outs of whatever strategic like power structure is happening. So I guess we'll work together or like at least not directly target each other. It, I don't know. We will see, but the in with a few minutes leading up to the deadline, those last two votes do come in, and indeed, by a vote of 3-1, Jace is sent off to the jury house, over Audrey, and I don't I don't fully remember if Meg was shocked by this happening or not. I think she'd put it together by this point, right? That Jace was gonna go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James not saying anything, which will come spill into Double is the big clue for Meg. She was like, "All right, I get how this is gonna go now."
Yeah. But yeah, and normally that would be where we end our little recap off. But of course, we have a whole other double eviction to talk about, people. And it was a fucking messy one. It was
It was so goodness
Shinx
God.
described it as a comedy of errors.
It
So
really was.
Hmm.
we can get right into it. They do have so this the Jace eviction took place on
Day 41,
yeah, day
and
40.
this happened day 42.
Yeah, and so they did have a day in between, much like the last one, to kind of mull things over and
Not an entire break day, but they had some bits
yeah,
of a
kind of
break.
total it was a day, but it was
Yeah,
really it was like the next day was the eviction. So in
yeah.
this time, Audrey does tell James about the Glorb Lords. So he had another person telling James about the Glorb Lords. And she was like, that's why I was freaking out so much, because I thought for sure if I got put up next to one of them, I would be dead. And James was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Thank you for telling me.
I'm
Sorry.
so sorry to scare you like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jace hits Jury, and he's very anti Jackie, very anti Davon. But he starts up that whole thing that seems to happen in any medium of Big Brother ever, where someone is like, well, we're the good people and they're terrible human beings.
Yep.
I don't know how they sleep at night. Um uh,
The
and
friendship.
yeah, exactly.
Soundly.
Definitely.
Exactly. But yes, people largely take that break day as exactly that, as a break, and we pretty much just go right into the double the next day. Shinx, would you like to describe the theme of your double eviction that you had?
Yes, so in the planning stages of the season, I was like, look, guys, I'm not a theater person. I'm a normie. I know nothing of this genre.
Mhm.
You all will have the theme, like the whole, but I just want to know that if there is a week that I want to have, number one, it has to be the double eviction because I don't want a week of full involvement. Number two,
Right.
I want Disney and I want Pink because the first two musicals that came to my mind were Legally Blonde and Mean Girls. And what do they have in common?
Pink.
Pink.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that's what we rolled with. And I
So
was
we
like,
were
we're
like,
gonna have
okay,
a Pink
Shakes,
week.
whatever you want.
We're having a Pink week. So I can
Yeah.
have some bits of contribution. I was able to weasel my way into one more week, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, so the competition that I stole from CDBB, which they apparently stole from Brady. So it's called Territories. Naturally, I called it Pink Places to partner up with the Veto Fugly Faces because we like to rhyme here. And the concept of the competition was basically I'm going to show you a 10 by 10 board of emojis that Jackson so beautifully designed and turned pink for me.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you had to, like, within seconds, discern which one it was the most and try to call dibs on it, like claim that territory. And in the process, you'd be blocking everyone else from getting that territory. And it was kind of like convoluted musical chairs, and you couldn't really tell if you were scoring the most or not. And yeah, basically, whoever had the most points by the end would win. And it was a bit of a battle. A lot of people were struggling. At first, Jason eventually had to bow out of the competition, basically. And Devon and Jackie just both were like fighting for their lives to like pick up emojis because the ones they wanted were getting stolen. Da 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 da. But then it worked out because Jackie just ran away with the competition and became the first head of household. Well, second, whatever, double victim. She was head of household, her first permanent one
Her
after
first
being
permanent one,
dethroned
yeah, exactly.
in week
Because
one.
she
Yeah,
won. She won that first one way back in week one.
yeah, yeah. So she wins HOH, and so any thoughts about like her and James getting broken up is immediately James was getting bad vibes. He was like, I'm really scared for Jackie. I don't think she's gonna win.
Yeah.
And then she won.
And she
So
did. She did tell James that she was gonna lock in for the double. So
yeah,
she called her
yeah.
shot and she got it. So good for
And
her.
lock in, she did.
Yeah.
So she immediately throws up Jason and Meg because she had the plan of just throw up the comp beasts and whoever goes, goes. If Meg wins the veto, they vote out Jason. If they say the same, vote out Meg. Jason wins, vote out Meg, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she does that. Then we go to Face Morph as the veto, dubbed Fugly Faces, because we wanted this was not supposed to be in this week, but again, the Becky quit of it all shifted things around. I'm like, we're not having the Face Morph.
Yeah.
And
It's iconic.
we've never done it live before. So I was like, I'm gonna just turn this into a booth comp. They're all gonna try to guess. They get it right, they get a point, blah blah blah. Blah. That was a nightmare. These people sucked. They were genuinely rounds where people just didn't no one got a point. I'm like, maybe I should have given partial credit, but I'm like, we
No.
don't do partial credit here. It's all or nothing.
Exactly.
And yeah, eventually people started to catch on that I only put one face per person, but I didn't tell them that. I was like, at this point, like, if you can notice the pattern by the end of the competition, good for you. And if you can't, you deserve to lose. So eventually
Yeah.
that happens. Jason, Jackie are like James and fucking stupid goddamn
It's I know it's
James.
the final fucking six at this point, and still half of them are J names.
James and Jackie are going head to head. And then James decides to throw and let Jackie sweep the week. And Jackie wins Face Morph. She joins the wonderful legion of people like myself who wins Face Morph. And then,
I won it before you did, bitch.
okay, I got evicted before I could. Anyways, yeah, so she's about to discard and go about her business, but then shit hits the fan because people cannot stay quiet. Meg tells James that he and Audrey are a duo and they'll work together because Jace told them to work together.
Yeah.
But also, Devon tells Jackie, "Hey, I'm more scared of Jason than Meg. I want to vote out Meg and vote out Jason to keep Meg." And
Yeah.
Audrey's like, "Oh yeah, I might want to keep Meg." Da 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 da. And Jackie's like, what?" And even James, for a second, was like, "I would probably keep Meg here." And so Jackie was like, "Okay, no, we're not having this." And ran her deadline, was sitting there. I was like, "Okay, you know what?" And she pulled
The
Jason off the
fact that
block
all of this is happening over the span of
in
like 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes, by the way.
Is
She
crazy.
yoinks Jason right off the block and throws. Well, she takes for 5 more minutes and then throws Audrey up there.
Yeah.
She's not throwing James up there. And then, even still, James was heavily contemplating voting out Audrey at that point.
Yeah.
And Devon was like getting mad because she's like, okay, I don't like being told what to do. I don't like that you tried to force my hand. So I'm going to keep Meg whether you like it or not. And then Jason was like, okay, Jackie, you did me a solid. So I'm going to vote to keep however you want. But she also put you in the block in the first place. So you can't put whatever. That's a whole other thing.
Such
And
a
then
mess.
James was like, I think it's better to keep Audrey. And Jackie was like, no, if you do this, I'm dead. It's like in Big Brother Canada 6 when Olivia and Johnny are talking and Olivia's about Johnny's like, don't fuck with me. And Johnny's like, no, you're good. Calm down. It's basically that between James and Jackie. And yeah, they pull it. Meg is just sitting there like, am I cooked? Is it the Audrey backdoor that we've been waiting for? And Jackie's just not responding. And then Meg kind of catches
because of
writing
anyone
on
this
the
season,
wall.
you would backdoor Audrey.
Audrey. I think Meg knew that she was cooked. And Meg needed primarily the HOH because she talked about how she's going to flop face morph like from 8. She was begging for Yankee swap and dreading face morph and got them both within days.
Yeah.
So you win, quite literally, you win some.
Peaks and valleys,
So yeah,
for sure.
she needed the HOH. She got second place. Shit happens. And yeah, so her fate was sealed once Jason got pulled off the block because Jason was going to do Audrey a solid, do Jackie a solid, and James was not going to go against what Jackie wanted, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, then James was like sitting there and waiting, as James does, doesn't tell Meg anything, and then just like, okay, Meg, I'm sorry, I have to evict you. Now, I will give James credit. For once, he was actually contemplating and not just stalling. But Meg don't know that. So Meg really thinks James was just stalling again. She's like, she even said, James, you have a really bad habit of like waiting till the literal last second to tell people things. And it's not cool.
Stalling
Meg,
a total of 10 minutes in a double eviction, it would be crazy though.
yeah, that would have been wild. But yeah, she was genuinely contemplating. Jackie damn near begged and sold her soul for him to not do that. So out Meg goes 2-1. She hits us with a cornbread classic. Fuck y'all. And off to jury she goes. And we have our final 5. A huge accomplishment in the game of Big Brother.
Yeah. Just
6th place double eviction club.
the fact that still, so like we've had days to process this. The fact that all of that happened in the span of like an hour and a lot of that happened in the span of like 10 minutes is just wild to me.
Even Jackie was like, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but that's the beauty of a double. You don't have time to think.
Yeah, exactly. Like we gotta go, people. We gotta go. But yes, Meg follows Jace into the jury house.
Sweet Meg.
I know. I loved Jace and Meg this whole season.
Our baby R super fan of one season, which is more than most people.
I know. It was very sad. And Meg's entire trajectory on this season I feel like was rather wild. And it's kind of like what we talked about earlier. She started off in such a strong position and really held a lot of that. She was largely like controlling what was going on with both the game and like kind of the majority alliance that was running the game. And it really just kind of all got pulled out from under her on a seemingly inconsequential
the Jeff week
vote.
fucked Meg for the rest of the season, I think. And his battle back blunder didn't help anything.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. Jason coming back in and kind of giving Jackie and Davon what they've been wanting basically the whole game. In an opportunity to fully flip on the Glorbs. And I'll give her credit. She did last the longest out of like the outsiders of the Glorbs that Jackie and Dave flipped on. But also she very well could have got home against Liz, and she probably should have. But she did manage to like get the votes together then. And then she had her clutch veto win the cycle before, but she just couldn't. She held out for about as long as she could and landed her here. At least I think going out in a double, I think, is always iconic either way. So at least she has that.
Yeah, once you get over the pain, it's like, you know what? At least they ripped the bandage off. They didn't fucking
I would
out for
much rather
24 hours.
Yeah. And if Meg was just gonna follow Jace like right out after anyways, I would much rather it be over the span of an hour instead of like 5 days or something. So
exactly.
So I was good with it. But yes, both by my babies, Jace and Meg, they will both be missed.
Rest in peace, Jag.
Yes, yes, we'll
They
always
stay
have.
bitter, and we love them for it.
Yeah, they really are starting a little like bitter jury brigade in there. They are not.
You know what? Knowing Ben, this makes sense.
Yeah,
Knowing Rio briefly from the span of this season, it also makes sense.
maybe it was there all along. We should have seen the
Yeah.
signs. But
I've
yes.
already had to have a nice little talk with Rio about how we are not going to get a strike and refuse to vote for anyone at the end because it'll ruin his legacy.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, girl,
Yeah,
we are not going to pull that shit. Come
yeah.
on.
You're not getting a
Yeah.
returnee callback if you pull that shit. So
Mhm.
Exactly.
Even I
remember
could
that.
vote between Krista and Danielle, although hard.
Yeah. Yeah,
They
if
were
Allie
pulling
can if
out for
Allie can
putting
do
you through
that.
that, Allie.
Yeah, if
Allie
Allie
did it
can do that,
twice.
then Jace can vote between whoever is in the final two.
Allie did it twice.
Yeah, and then I had to vote between Shinx and Sabra. Like, wow.
That's very true. That's a
You
great
are
point.
literally stronger. You are God's strongest
Stronger than
soldier,
the
Allie.
troops.
Yeah. But yes, that was both the normal final 7 eviction and the final 6 double eviction in the books. It is now time for our MVP points for the week. Since it's a double eviction, it's only right that we have double the MVP points. It doesn't have to be 1 for each cycle. It can be 2 for 1 cycle, whatever you feel. It's completely up to you. Shinx, would you like to go first?
I would, and just because it doesn't have to be doesn't mean that I won't be doing it anyways, because I am.
Right.
So for the
Sure.
final 8 rounds,
7.
I'm gonna give my goddamn final 7 rounds. I'm gonna give my MVP point shocker here to Meg because we love a self-fulfilling prophecy. Can I finish?
Actually, no, I
Damn.
knew you would do this. I knew you would say, I love a competition win and I love a
That's
veto win.
I was going to say Meg has been begging for the Yankee swap all season long and was so sad when she thought she voted out the Yankee swap with the Twins. And it was just very fitting to see that. Not only did she save herself with the comp that she wanted, she dominated the comp that she wanted.
Sure.
And it was just a nice full circle moment for little Miss Megara. And it gave her a life in the game that she probably would have very well needed. Because if Dom stayed the same, yeah, she was cooked. But she was able to stay. She was able to fight for Jace, even though it did not end well because people play with their faces. But yeah, just giving Magga her flowers. I would have done this even if she didn't get 6th place. So there's that. But speaking of final 6, I'm giving my MVP point controversially here to Jason because he's the only person who did not do something in that hour and a half that did not piss me off as a host,
And you know
as a
what?
fan.
That's all it
As a-
takes sometimes. So
And honestly, Jackie swept when she didn't need to. Audrey got put up when she shouldn't have gone off the block. James almost pissed off Jackie in the process. Meg went home. Who's left? Davon. Davon was fine, but she should have probably left her lid on a little bit and not like antagonize
Davon still
Jackie.
told Jackie that
Yeah,
she was gonna vote out
yeah, and
Jason over Meg.
just everything. The only thing Jason did wrong was get nominated, and obviously that wasn't his fault. And obviously he got taken off the block anyways. And
Yeah.
obviously he's now in the final final 4. So you know what? I'm giving Jason his flowers
But
because
yeah,
he
who
couldn't
would have
even
thought?
do either competition. He had to bow out of both of them basically.
Yeah.
Still got
Last
yoinked off.
last double eviction, he got the boot. So like growth.
Exactly. Another full circle moment. Jason was really worried about being the double boot again, and now he came out of the double, the cleanest out of everybody by virtue
Yeah.
of literally doing nothing because he didn't
Which is
have to.
crazy.
And you know
to
what?
say, but
Respect.
yeah, that's fair.
He
No.
didn't piss me off. No one of all the comedy of errors, he had a straight face. And in this moment, it was deserved. And so yes, my big points go to Meg, pre-posthumously, but still posthumously, and Jason. Here we are.
Very good.
That's
Very
all from me.
You know, I respect both of them, Shinx, so by all means. Who wants to go next? Nobody? Okay, I'll go next. I am going to I'm just gonna double down on mine. I'm gonna give both of my points to Jackie. I think she absolutely deserves it for the final
Yes.
7. I thought she really kind of played circles around everybody in the
She
final
did.
7. And like her maintaining I think just in itself, all the shit she did with Davon and like inceptioning her into like thinking that she was bringing her and James together and that it was Day's idea to vote out vote out Jace, and just all of that was crazy. And it worked off so seamlessly. So absolutely, she was gonna get it for my final 7. For my final 6, I debated on it, but I really think, while yes, people did tell her to her face, like, oh well, like Day told her, oh well, I'm gonna vote out Jason over Meg. And Audrey was like, oh well, I'm working with Meg now. And stuff like
They
that.
all have to shut up. If they just shut up,
Yeah.
would have got my PvP point.
I
Would
mean,
have been fine.
people still felt, whether it was based in wise decision making or not, felt comfortable enough to tell that to Jackie, I guess. So
Yeah.
good for her. And
Each their own.
honestly, clutching up the veto as well, and being like, okay, well, I'm not gonna stand for this, and I want what I want. And I want what I want, and it's gonna happen. And using it on Jason and like kind of stiff arming everybody into getting Meg out what she wanted, I give respect to that. And the fact that it all happened over the span of like 10 minutes, like we said, I
Yeah.
think it's great. So I'm just gonna give Jackie both of my MVP points for this.
I'll go
Rip.
next. I'll go next. I just want to play it up. I just want to have a little fun because I have my 2 MVP points and my top billing. And spoiler, I'm pretty much giving all of them to the same person. But since the MVP is a little more wiggle room, I'm giving one to Jackie for all the reasons we just said. I'm not going to go over it again. But I'm going to give one to Jason for surviving. Like, I get that that's a really low bar. But like when you really look at it, it's pretty iconic of him to essentially only survive for so long because he was winning Battle of the Blocks or like POV
Yeah.
or HOH. And then he had 1 week where he wasn't nominated and wasn't immune, and then he was gone. He was immediately evicted after that.
Yep.
And then he comes back from the battle back, and there's so much going on that he really manages to utilize the power he has very well and get to the point here where, yes, was he vetoed from the block during the doubles simply because Jackie wanted to ensure the votes were there? Yes. Did he really have any say in it? Or did he have any persuasive power that got him off the block? No. But I still think it's impressive that with all he's been through and the calm threat that he's shown to be himself, and also the fact that at the end of the day, he's played his own game and not really cowered or caved to anybody in power, though he's very consistently been an outsider. I think it's impressive that he's made it this far.
Yeah.
And I do think it speaks just slightly to his game and his social flexibility that Jackie was willing to nom him and then veto him. Again, I don't think that she made that move, obviously, because of anything he did, but I do think it's great for him. I mean, he got to enjoy a lot of immunity privilege without really having to do much. And I think that just says something that he wasn't anyone's first target. And not because he's a total non-threat, though that's partly it, I guess, but a lot of it just because like he's managed to dig his way into those very few small niches left where there's some social power to be had. So I'm going to give one to Jackie and one to Jason because we love a block roach.
Slay.
Period. I can go. So I am actually going to just mirror Jackson again, just like last episode, and I am doubling down on Jackie. First one, very obvious. She ate up and down while James had to get his hands dirty, which was kind of the opposite of previously. Because I feel like James has really been able to kind of benefit from being just like everybody's little buddy,
Yeah.
you know? Which I think is why it was an extra gag when he actually had to get some blood on his hands. But then even as a double, like, it's funny because I actually kind of did want to be like quirky and not do Jackie because I was like, I don't know, it just feels kind of boring to double up. But then I'm like, you know what? Let's just stop it. Let's just like let women dominate. She had a sweep week. She vetoed her own fucking nomination to force her will upon the house, and I just really kind of have to stand that.
That's powerful.
So
absolutely.
it really is powerful, and I think in a game where there's been so much of people just being like a little bit, they've been kind of pussies with their gameplay a little bit.
Yeah.
I kind of really just admire her being like, no, this is what I want. This is what's happening, and you guys are just gonna fucking fall in line or get out.
Period.
So
absolutely.
I like it.
As you should. Allie, you want to close us out for our MVP points?
Yes, I am ready.
Yeah, you go for it.
I'm going to do split points. I think for the first round, I want to give Meg her flowers because she ate up that veto, and honestly, yeah, she had no right getting past final 7. And I also think she did, like, I know like Jace made their little trio, and he's like, Audrey, Meg, now kiss. And kiss a little. I will say that. They did have some smooches.
Period.
So I do want to give Meg that one, but the other one definitely Jackie because she entirely ran that week, and I can't really justify giving it to anyone else.
Yeah.
But I think it's just so funny how she literally, like, I don't know how people like Trip told her like, oh, we're not gonna do what you want, like, to her face.
No, that's crazy to me. Just wild. But yeah, cool. All right. Those are our MVP points. Getting a double dose where there is 2 MVP points for an episode. There is 2 top billings of the week as well. So Sydney, would you like to dish out both of those while we're at it?
Well, yes, I would like to do
Yes.
that. Well, yes. I am no fanfare. It's not a surprise. I'm going to give both to Jackie. And I won't go into too much because we've talked about it so much, but essentially the first one is because she dominated during James's HOH. She utilized all of his missteps to make herself look better. She said all the right things. I mean, really, the only thing that she had going against her that week was the fact that Jace left bitter, and that was pretty much inevitable. Like, Jace was going to leave bitter with her, probably no matter what she did. And I do think he left more bitter over James than her, which I think means something. So yeah, I mean, she played that week perfectly. She deserves it. I don't think anybody else got even close to deserving it that week other than Jackie. And then for the double, I mean, it's pretty impressive to not only sweep the double, which first of all just ensures that you're going to survive the double. I mean, let's start there because doubles are doubles, and that's the time, if anything, to fuck over someone or break a bond or, you know, whatever the fuck happens during doubles. So not only does she secure her safety, which was she already probably the safest person in that double? Yes, which is already its own thing. But you know what? You never know. So she secures her safety, and then essentially is like, I am going to make what I want to happen by force. No one has any choice. And it's what fucking happened. And it's like, was it kind of messy? Yeah. But like, was it the right kind of messy? Like, messy for a purpose rather than messy just to be messy? Jace, cough, cough. So it's like, I appreciate the fact that Jackie, who is a very calm, level headed player, when she brings mess, there's usually a really good reason for it. And it all paid off for her. Like, it would be one thing if she did all that and it didn't work, but it did work. And spoiler alert, like, she's probably going to be okay the next week. We'll talk about that and obviously the next podcast. But it's like Jackie has set herself up to do very well. And not only did she survive and get what she wanted, but she also added like a really good stick to her resume, essentially. Like, it's really big to be able to say, I dominated the double, I got out a huge target in Meg, I got exactly what I wanted, and if she makes it to final 2, she's like, I also made it to final 2. So I did all that, I was flashy as fuck, and I'm still standing here before all of you. So I mean, I think it increased her threat level, but at the end of the day, like, her threat level was already increased anyway, so she definitely deserves it.
But you know what? Even then, I still think people see Davon as a bigger threat over her.
I agree, and obviously we won't get into it much because that's getting ahead of ourselves. But we are seeing that play out after the double has ended in this next cycle. So it's like Jackie
I was actually gonna
ahead.
comment that I was just gonna say, like, I think when you were talking about like how it's increased her threat level and, like, you know, she kind of pushed her will upon the house, I think it also got her like extra bonus points with the jury, I'd imagine, with putting Davon in her place, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like, Day, who has been such an openly strategic presence in the game, kind of being like, you will do as I tell you, is, I don't know. I think that was kind of gaggy for people.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Oh no, absolutely.
She kind of like gave Day her own medicine a little bit. She was like, well, I don't care what you want to happen. This is what I want to happen, and it's gonna happen.
Absolutely. And the fact is, like, even Day who was annoyed by it, she was also like, damn, I gotta respect it though. Like I've been essentially doing this the entire game to everybody
Yeah.
else. So it's like Day also like recognized this fucking game.
Yeah.
So I mean,
That's
as
why I
much
love Day.
as
Yeah,
I know Day is such a like a refreshing presence on the season. I love her too. But yeah, Jackie did very well with power, and she was messy and she was fun, and she made big flashy moves, and she did it all to improve her game and give herself an even better resume. So Jackie's the deserved winner of both top billings.
Period. As she should be. All right. Well, that was our double dose of MVP points and our double dose of top billings of the week. So the only thing we have left to do is to dish out our awards. Each cycle, or each episode, I'm sorry, we have had certain nominees for various categories, just pending on what has been happening with the season. Last episode, given that Jason returned to the game and shook up things rather dramatically, our category was the best battleback house guest in Rewind's history. Our options, of course, as a brief recap, were Jerry from season 3, Maggie in season 6, Jen in season 9, Dom Top Dominic from season 13, Clementine from 15, Bluey Brigade Joey from 16, and then of course Jason from this very season. I will say this vote ultimately came down to, I think, the correct top two.
I'm gonna guess it was Joey.
With Dom Top Dominic and Bluey Brigade Joey. But I can confirm that just sneaking past and taking the title of the best Battleback house guest in Rewind's history is indeed the Dom Top Dominic.
Period.
Let's
I was gonna say he's the
go.
fucking runner-up. Like, how can you not have
Let's
go.
made
So
it all the way to
deserved.
Q&A? Come on.
I know, so deserved.
up.
Harmonizer.
Hey, so
absolutely
did Jerry. And Jerry's not Dominic.
No.
No, we
No,
love
no,
I
no.
Jerry.
literally had to go, wait, who? For a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So yes, we are on to a new nominee category. I felt it was only fitting given how much of a shit show the double eviction was. And we've had quite a few shit show cycles in our hands in our history of Big Brother Rewind. So I've gone with the nomination category of the messiest gameplay in Rewind's history. For this episode, we will of course.
Please let me go first. Please.
I will, but let me go ahead and nominate this instance of this double eviction in season 17 as the first nominee for the category. And Sydney, you are more than welcome to take things away.
I'm so excited. I sometimes forget like how much I love BBR 14. I think maybe because sometimes it just feels like a fever dream that entire season. But literally the best, most chaotic, messiest season of the BBR ever, I think we could say. So my nomination, and there were a few cycles I could have chosen, but the most iconic one that sticks out to me is when Ian and who was on the block? It was Ian and Danielle were on the block against each other.
Mhm.
Danielle it was a close vote. Like, I mean, it was good. And I think this was like literally like cycle 3.
It was like cycle
like it
2.
wasn't
Or
Yeah, it
cycle
was really
3.
early.
Yeah.
It was like still pre-jury. The game had just fucking started. Also, Allie, if you ever want to pop in because you were there, you got to be in it. But this was like cycle 3 or something, cycle 2. Ian and Danielle on the block, and Jen in typical Jen fashion, like no one knows what she's doing. And Danielle and Ian are like begging her in DMs like to keep them. Ian like was the front runner to stay at first, but the votes were starting to tip toward keeping Danielle. And Jen tells Ian and Danielle, okay, I will only keep you if you do this slide puzzle for me to show me that you have a good comp ability so that you'll be a good ally. So she literally forces Ian and Danielle to do this stupid ass fucking slide puzzle. And Ian does it and like does it really quickly and finishes it. And then she in the background is like freaking out with Ashley over who to evict here, blah, 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 blah. I'm pretty sure this is also the cycle where Ashley got drunk at like a brunch or something
Yep.
and ended up coming back. she came back late and was like hadn't voted, so she got sequestered and she didn't know where the votes were because she couldn't talk to anybody. So Jen votes to evict Ian because she thinks the votes aren't there to keep him. And obviously the slide puzzle like didn't convince her. Ashley shows up sequestered, hasn't voted, doesn't know what the fuck's going on, and just decides that they must not have the votes to save Ian. So she votes out Ian as like the breaker vote 4-3 for Ian to go home.
Well, no, that ties the vote.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right.
Ties
And
the
then
vote
Yeah.
3-3.
Will was the HOH, and Will had actually nominated Danielle as his target to start off. And then when Ian went up, he like I think him and Danielle kind of like patched things up, and he decided that he wanted Danielle to stay. So he was actually there at the end of the vote trying to get Ian out. But again, it was still so close. So so Ashley comes on late, gets a strike because she didn't vote, ties it, and then Will evicts Ian. Who also like we were like, oh my god, Ian's such an amazing character. Like he's gonna definitely come back for second chances. And then he got banned from the server a few cycles later because he said that you should be able to use the word cunt. And he's a cis straight man. And he said that for some reason he thought this was
it's an Australian server.
Everyone thinks this man is straight. He is queer. This is a queer man starting this bullshit.
Sorry. Ohio Luke, sorry to say that you were straight, but he is a cis man who wanted to use the word cunt. I'm pretty sure it's because JoJo, aka Allie here, called someone a cunt in her DR, and he took that to mean that like anyone can.
Allie, really, it's your fault.
Allie, you did this.
I have to tell
Maybe.
Thank you for your impact.
Tell y'all to stop saying this word, but just maybe use it sparingly. Maybe.
So funny.
Well, I'm a woman, so don't tell me what to do.
Because I know if someone told me not to,
if
someone told me not to say the N word, I'd start a fight. So I can't judge.
Yeah, you're not gonna tell me what to say.
Period.
Yeah.
Do you have any other?
Remember that round.
Yeah.
I remember Ashley. I think she got on like 5 minutes before deadline. She was like, "Girl, I don't know what I'm doing, lol." And I was like, "Hi." I was like, "Hi. Do you want to tell me hi?" I was like, "Can we keep Ian? Hi." And I don't even know what happened. I think I hated Ian, but then like I switched up randomly because that was weird.
Queen.
That whole season was just a shit show.
Every week, fucking week.
So
I remember I threatened Ashley too. I was like, next time you're on the block, I'm going to DM you like 5 minutes left, and that's your time to talk to me.
Better make it count. Absolutely.
I'll go next.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I do want to throw in another one from this specific season because I do feel it wasn't the most messy. I think it was overshadowed by the double, but just the way all the voters, specifically James and Jackie, were not on the same page with handling breaking the news to Jason and Meg was so bad. And like they were unintentionally throwing each other under the bus. And then James was like, "Oh man, I feel like Jackie's letting me take all the blame." And Jackie's like, "I'm letting James take all the blame." And it was just such like chaos and mess. I feel like they probably won't win. We feel like it has to be at least mentioned that they were, and then Jace left bitter at both of them anyways. So just and then there's so many options to talk about from 14 that I'm sure Allie will take one. So and I know Jackson will want to talk about 11. So and Alex will talk about 15. So I'll talk about 16 because Jesus
I'm looking
Christ.
for a week where I'm not going to talk about 15. I swear.
the Devin
I'm so
vote,
glad I got to talk about 14. I'm also
the Devin vote in 16.
Oh Jesus fucking Christ!
Not because I loved Devin or anything, but because it was so unnecessary. It did not need to. I don't even think it was good for Zach and Donnie to do, but they did it because they could. That was
because Donnie's a dumb fuck,
and it was just.
And I've always said that.
We talked about it ad nauseum, but if you don't recall, basically the house was splitting in maybe 16 between the Shield Alliance and just the remnants of another side that was like never really a compact side at that point. And it was Nicole's HOH week 3, an HOH she shouldn't have won, by the way. So we can talk about that one as well. And
yeah, we'll have to have a category one time that's like top worst HOHs that you shouldn't have won.
You shouldn't have won. Yeah. So the HOH, the votes come down. Also, I think that might be the largest margin of a 1 vote difference we've had. But yeah, just the vote. It was basically the Shield Alliance, the typical majority alliance, Onion, whatever you want to talk about, was like commanding the vote, and the minority was like, "Wait, who are these numbers that are voting out Joey? I don't want to vote out Joey. You don't want to vote out Joey. And then the Blue Brigade started to be born here. They were birthed in a sense, as everyone was like, I want to keep Joey around. But then Zach and Donnie were like straight in the middle. I think Ace talked about this when he was here actually. But Zach and Donnie were like right in the middle and trying to like figure out. Well, they wanted to send out Devin for no reason other than to send out Devin and weaken the majority, which Zach was in, by the way. And they almost the fact that they did all that and then still almost let it go because they were not organizing their own vote flip until Ace Hayden came online and was like, "Yeah, what the fuck is going on?
It
Are we
was
doing this or are we not?"
it was such a mess. It
So
was so
bad,
bad.
and it was so
And
messy. It was
it
horrible.
was so messy to the point that it basically started the whole, albeit there were more things after, but it really started like Zach's downfall that entire time.
Yeah. The worst part of this all, Zach got away with it at first because Donnie stepped up and took all the fucking blame.
Donnie was
And
like, guys, I gotta be honest
alliance,
here. This is
everyone
all on
clocked
me.
Zach, and then Donnie was like, "No, it was me." Like, "Oh my god, Zach, I'm so sorry." Fuck Donnie, just horrible.
Just
messy.
so
Yeah,
bad.
Donnie's so stupid.
Yeah, just
Yeah, that was that fucking. It was also compounded with the fact that really like the until like Noms locked pretty much, that cycle was like pretty tame. But then yeah, it just started with the vote and it just went like that.
If you told me that Joey was gonna survive that week when Noms first locked, I would have been like, "You're crazy." If you would have told me we were getting a 6-5 vote flip, that would have been
and that
crazy.
those
and
six people were like Caleb, Christine, Amber, Zach, or no, actually Zach voted.
Zach voted. That's all the thing. Zach voted in the majority to keep minority to keep his cup. It was just.
It was like the most random group of fucking people.
I'm getting angry.
It was great. It was amazing. It was so good. But yeah, that absolutely deserves to be on Messiest gameplay.
Yeah.
The entire cycle was such a mess.
Yeah.
Do you have any other nominees, Shinx, or is that it for you?
I mean, Allie, which one did you want to talk about from 14?
From 14?
Or
honestly,
from 15, if you want to talk about your double eviction boot in 15.
Well, I think 14's double eviction was insane because it ended up not happening and I got saved by it. That one was pretty crazy because I thought it was cooked. I remember I was like at a soccer game. I come back and it was like 2 people have not voted. Frank's getting pulled. And then it's like a revote. And Joe was like, "Actually, I might keep you this time."
Yeah.
And I remember I don't even know why he would do that, by the way, because I don't know how you could evict someone and be like, "JK, I'll keep you now."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that all spills into your HOH where.
Oh my god, yeah. I went into H finally ready to get my lick back, get put in exile, then I come back, see Danielle has a veto, so I can't even nom her. So I'm like, fine, I throw up. Who did I even throw up? I don't even think I threw up Krista because
you had no choice. You had to nominate Shane by default after the fact.
Yeah.
So and then they both played their vetoes.
Yeah, the first one, since Danielle's was like the twist, she had to go first. And she used hers on Joe. So you renominated Ashley. And then it was Krista's turn who won the normal veto. And she used the veto on Ashley. And at that point, you were out of options and you had to nominate Shane.
Mind you, Krista was gaslighting the spectators. Krista was gaslighting me in submission. Saying,
for no reason.
For
no reason.
I'm like, are you kidding me?
We were all, no offense, but like we were all devastated when she started lying to us because we all totally believed her that she wasn't going to use it on Ashley, and she fully convinced us for no fucking reason other than Cole is an evil little rat and loves to hurt us. And then he fucking used it. He was like, "Ha ha, just keeping you guys on edge of whatever." I was like, just shut the fuck up.
Having Cole and Cheryl in the season together and the gray hair. So
it did not disappoint.
I can't. But the only other thing for 14 that I would have to mention again is Cheryl, Ashley, just going to town on Hazel Danielle at the Final Four, begging for her life. Thousands of messages. She was like, "Girl, don't be a clown. This will be you if you vote me out right now. Here's your shoes."
It was crazy. It was genuinely
take what Audrey did to James times like 60,000 million on steroids,
and for a total of 24 hours,
and to still go home afterwards.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say.
I think at one point she had sent like 400 messages without a response from Danielle.
Yeah, it was bad. It
And
was
she was
it
like
was
having a
bad.
full-on breakdown and like going through all the stages of grief like multiple times over, all in attempts to try and get Danielle to vote out Krista and keep Ashley instead. I've genuinely never experienced anything like it, and I don't think I ever will.
BBR 14
But
is, in my opinion,
a
the
fever
best season of
dream.
BBR. It's so fucking good.
Yeah.
It's so
Alex,
fucking good.
would you like to go next?
Sure, thank you.
Okay.
So I was like really debating which season or which cycle of season 15 to do because there was a lot of messiness, especially in that pre-jury time.
Sure.
But kind of the mention of the Erin double, yeah, that was just so unnecessarily messy on so many different levels.
Yeah.
You know, there was the public fighting, which was wildly entertaining, but
Yeah.
unnecessary. You know, it was not smart gameplay. There was then like the Sombra and Pikmin of it all, for when
Oh my
they
god.
decided to just start both of them. They were just really concerned that they were being seen as too close of a duo. They came up with this like weird plan where they would vote differently and then start fighting over the vote and like get people to think that they were just like not close at all. It was the worst idea
It was
ever.
wild.
It was just truly wild. And then my favorite part is that I believe it was that Pikmin voted for Erin and then Sombra voted for D, but they like switched that with what they told people they voted. So like to everyone else, Pikmin was claiming that they voted for D, and Sombra was claiming that she voted for Erin, and like they kept this up until like late game because I was talking to D about something, and he's like, "No, no, no, Pikmin definitely voted for me." I'm like, "Well, that was a fucking lie. Like, I don't know
For
what
no
you're talking
reason, by the way. This was a
for no
stupid thing to
reason
lie about.
whatsoever. Like it was to the point like where I legitimately started trusting them less, even though I was like the only person they told the truth to, because I thought that like I was missing the strategic reason for why they did that and that they were like trying to miss me or something. It was like
Yeah.
the stupidest fucking thing in the world.
I mean,
Like
even with that double, we can also touch like we touched about the competition just being horrible. I think we mentioned it last a few podcasts that
I think we brought up your trauma
yeah,
with
and
it
then just
at
my
some point.
alliance, me telling my alliance, hey, I'm not doing Aaron, and then being like, if you don't do Aaron, we're never gonna trust you again, and you're done. And I was like, okay, well,
To be fair,
I
that
have
was
no
more
choice.
tiny, and then you just kind of came in my DMs asking what you should do, and I just kind of went like, "That's probably a good idea to do." Yeah, I mean,
After I
if you want
I
to
said,
nominate Aaron who keeps trying to murder me, like I'm not gonna say no, you know?
yeah, especially because I told them beforehand, I'm like, y'all, I'm not doing this. So if you want her, go on and do it yourself. And they couldn't do it themselves, and they're like, if you don't do it, we're gonna kill you. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Honestly, I did, but I didn't.
You did have a
Thank you for that.
choice.
Yes, yes. You won same
Did a
fiber, you're
little bit.
fine.
Knock him again for me.
No,
Right,
it's like
you
he,
won
he
same.
like brings up Saint Viber. Like I was so sweet to Shanks in Saint Viber, and then he like tried to get me to flush my idol, and I still was nice to him. And then come to rewinds, he's like, "I promise to keep you safe," and throws me up. Then I'm like, "Okay, don't throw veto to Tiny,"
Okay,
and then he
I tried
proceeds
to
to throw
throw
it to
you the
Tiny.
veto, and it was just a bad competition where I could not. I had to throw it to Tiny for sake of my future
That was the
survival.
worst veto for me to ever.
It really
have.
was. I thought it was dead, and I
It was
brought it back
bad.
to torture me.
Listen,
Anyways,
it was worth it alone to me for all the fighting that happened in it. So I like
Jacqueline,
it.
do you want to
I
close
think
us
I like
out?
hyping Shanks. I was like,
Yes.
"You don't throw me like you're
I
dead."
feel like it was really fitting for a player like you though to go out in such an epic fashion because like
Yeah.
you were such a force in that game. Like
True.
Yeah.
I was terrified of you for a reason.
I fear
So
Aaron and Sunny did body the pre-jury in a way I
Yeah.
cannot imagine.
oh yeah,
And it
for
was
sure.
it was very fitting that it all came to a head of like you versus Tiny Kong in that last
Tiny
round.
Kong.
So
Oh my
but yes, while we're
God.
talking about 15, I do want to throw a couple things in there. We were talking about Aaron being murdered. It's only right that we talk about multiple attempts on Tiny Kong's life.
Yes.
There were a
Mhm.
couple that were right back to back. The first one
Yeah.
being cycle 3 of that season, in which Sunflower won head of household, and Zelda was given the MVP. And it was Zelda was kind of an underdog. This whole like salads thing was still forming, and Sunflower was pretty like across the board. Like he had a couple people that maybe didn't super vibe, but a lot of people really liked Sunflower. But
I did.
Sunflower had realized that Tiny Kong was indeed Hazel from season 14, also
And
from
Sunflower is Liam, so they already have trauma Pixel. It was
Pixel Brothers season 1, lest we forget. And so Sunflower made it his personal mission to get Tiny Kong out of the game. And you would think that they would use the plausible deniability of MVP to put up Tiny Kong and get no blood. And oh wait, no, that's exactly what they did. Wait,
I
didn't
was just gonna say, I'm like, they did.
No.
Yeah.
They did a backdoor once, and it was just a hole. It was just
That's
a
true.
mess.
It was just a mess. But
Another comedy of errors.
yeah. So anyways, it ends up being well, no, because I thought Clementine was put up as MVP.
It was 2 in a row, I think.
Was it? I don't
Super
remember. But anyways, they try and kill Tiny Kong. Needless to say,
And fail.
And Tiny
Twice
Kong
in a
wins
row.
veto, as Tiny Kong tends to do. And that leads
course.
to instead Sunflower
okay.
having to kind of pivot. And Sunflower actually wanted Isabel, aka Alex, out, but that very quickly was not going to happen.
You're welcome,
So
Alex.
it pivoted
you.
to Doomslayer instead.
Yes,
And
which we've talked about ad nauseum.
yes, and so obviously
Poor
a
Doom.
very close, messy 6-4 contentious vote. Doomslayer did get evicted in that. And then
Little
the
sneaky.
immediate next round, after that, Zelda herself won HOH. And Isabel, after mourning the loss of her husband in Doomslayer, was given MVP. And so Zelda initially didn't want to go after Tiny Kong, and instead put up 2 other people in. I don't fully remember who it was that
I can
put up instead. I think it was like Clementine and somebody.
Clementine, Lara, then Sunflower won, took Lara off against Zelda's
Right. Okay.
wishes.
Yeah. So
Zelda was
Zelda
forced
puts up
to dominate
Clementine
Tiny
and
Kong.
Sunflower, to be kind of
Lara.
like still kind of like pick a side, but also kind of not, and didn't want to just full
Yeah.
send on Tiny Kong again since it just happened and it failed. But unfortunately for Zelda, Sunflower won the veto that cycle as well. And
Yoinked Lara right off the block.
yeah, a very a la Ashley in 14 spent the entire 24-hour deadline laying into fucking Zelda and basically groveling on like hands and knees and like psychologically like warfaring Zelda into being like,
To be fair, though, Tiny was like one of the main reasons why Zelda had stayed previously, at least
Yeah.
publicly.
Yeah.
No,
So,
it's
like,
true.
I understand why she was
Getting a 6-5
emotionally
back to
terrorizing
back
It was
was
crazy.
cracked.
Yeah, and so Zelda initially is like eventually is broken down enough and is like fine. And Sunflower uses the veto on Lara, and Zelda puts up Tiny Kong only for it to fail, and then
The votes were not there. I don't know who
for
told
them to
him he
vote
had the
out
votes.
Magikarp,
but he-
thanks to the MVP, and Tiny Kong survives yet another murder attempt. And then one last one I want to touch about is that in BBR 11, my favorite season, whoop whoop, we have the round of Jen and Zach being nominated by Jordan, targeting the vets. And Jen won a clutch veto when she absolutely needed it. And it ended up being Casey and Zach on the block, 2 of Jen's closest allies. And Jen was going back and forth as the swing vote until quite literally the deadline. Like we've talked about people voting to the deadline. It was the deadline. And she switched with seconds to go to evict Zach and keep Casey. And then the deadline stopped and she tried to switch back. And we had to literally snowflake it. So that it didn't. And Zach ended up going home and it was fucking.
Yeah, it was so bad. But
yes,
yeah.
That's all of our nominees. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Allie, for being our extra special guest.
Allie.
Thank you, Allie.
Thank you, Allie.
Thank you. And we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.